The first time I did it, like 10 years ago, the sort of press, particularly the industry press in America, was like, why is he saying these awful things to the most beautiful people? You know? And then by the fifth time, right, they were going, good, give it to him, we're sick of celebrities.
There's a claim circulating right now that the Epstein files reveal Ellen DeGeneres as, and I'm quoting this directly from the Post's, Hollywood's most prolific cannibal, that she consumed human flesh.
Guess what? Pizza's here. Hello. Come on down. I lied. We weren't going backstage.
Ellen DeGeneres is named in the Epstein documents, and that part is real. Her name appears in the broader index of over 300 high-profile individuals that show up across the investigative materials.
Spoiler alert, season 2 is on the way, so in the end, he obviously didn't himself. Just like Jeffrey Epstein. Shut up! I know he's your friend, but I don't care.
That phrase was spoken on live television in a room full of the most influential individuals in Hollywood, and not a single person laughed, glowing.
Shining a light on something they don't want shined on.
He spent years repeating it. Hollywood labeled him insane. They blacklisted him twice. They informed every studio in town, if you touch this item, you are finished.
Hollywood handing that person, here you go, you can do whatever you want. No, it doesn't work that in the industry. We've come to a very, very dark place.
A very, very gloomy location. That's the guy who portrayed Jesus on TV, telling you what's truly occurring behind the curtain. And while he was being chastised for uttering it, when Ricky Gervais was firing warning shots from the Golden Globe stage, one of the most powerful ladies in daytime television was quietly creating an empire on the words, "Be nice." Then the Department of Justice released 3.5 million pages of Epstein records. Her name was within. And now every caution Gervais and Gervais ever given struck different. However, no one is making the connection here. Let's start with the room, because before we get to Ellen, before we get to the papers, before we get to the pals she had who are now sitting in federal jail, you need to comprehend the room. Every January, Hollywood gathers for the Golden Globes. The greatest performers, the wealthiest producers, the studio chiefs who determine whose career survives and whose career dies. They gather at round tables, they sip champagne, they laugh at themselves a bit, just enough to seem modest for the cameras. That's the show, that's the performance. And for years the producers of that program kept bringing one particular individual back to present it. A British comedian who didn't care about getting invited to their gatherings. A guy who had no career to lose by giving them the truth stated.
And not only are we not furious, most of us, we don't care, we wouldn't have even known about it if you hadn't have found it and printed it and told us we're furious. So it's just this vicious cycle. But no, I don't care. And likewise, I know people are allowed to be offended by things I've said. That's up to them. That's the good thing about freedom of speech. I can say what I want. You can say you're offended. I can care or not.
Are 200 million people at home? That was his audience. Not the superstars, not the producers, not the publicists biting their lips in the front row. The folks watching at home who had no clue what was truly going on in Hollywood. The people who had never been invited to the parties. The ones who had never signed the agreements. The people who had never witnessed what occurred after the cameras stopped rolling. And Gervais went that stage year after year, and he offered those 200 million people a small crack in the wall, a little peek of what the individuals in that room truly were. If you go back, watch that moment, watch the room, watch the cameras cut away. See the producers stop eating, watch the actors freeze in their chairs, because it wasn't a joke. That was a name. That was a flight. And every single person in the room knew precisely which aircraft he was talking about.
I didn't go out there and break the law. It wasn't mental. Everything was justified. I researched those jokes. I made sure it was fair. I wouldn't say anything to go, well, that's not fair. He didn't do that. I'd go, only tell the truth. I didn't out anyone. I didn't do anything it was not in public. I didn't do anything that was something they couldn't help. It was about their behaviors.
Yes.
I know he's your buddy. He didn't mention a name. He didn't have to, because every influential person in the room had been on a list, in a logbook, at a dinner, at a party. And they all knew who else had been there, and they all knew who they were protecting. That's why nobody laughed. You don't chuckle at a warning shot. You sit extremely motionless, and you pray the next bullet doesn't have your name on it. Now meet the second guy who attempted to warn us. Jim Caviezel. Jim Caviezel is not some random dude on YouTube. He's not a podcaster. He's not a conspiratorial influencer. He is the guy Mel Gibson personally picked to portray Jesus Christ in The Passion of the Christ, a film that earned $612 million worldwide and remains one of the highest-grossing independent films ever filmed. After that, Jim had everything. He had the fame, he had the respect, he had the future. And then he made a move that ruined his Hollywood career overnight. He signed on to a film called Sound of Freedom, a film about a genuine former federal agent named Tim Ballard, who resigned his profession to go rescue children from trafficking networks in Latin America. While they were shooting on site, Jim stepped straight up to the crew and asked them point blank what type of children they wanted. That's when he grasped what he was truly dealing with.
At the end, I was asking about the movie, and I asked him about that one particular part where everybody's talking, and they all cried out Epstein Island. And I went, oh, okay. Now I understand what we're up against.
Wow.
Epstein Island isn't the only island.
You would think every studio in Hollywood would be lined up to fund a film about protecting children from trafficking. You would think this would be the simplest sale of all time. That is not what occurred. The opposite occurred. Every major studio was cautioned to steer clear from it. Don't manufacture it, don't finance it, don't disseminate it, don't even be pictured near it.
From Rupert Murdoch, from Fox, to every studio. Look, if you touch this thing, you will be out, you will be done. You'll be finished in 3 years.
Stop and think about what he just stated. He stated the most powerful media operator in the English-speaking world supposedly sent out a command that anybody who touched a movie on rescuing children from trafficking would be annihilated within 3 years. That's the claim. That's what he claims occurred. The answer from Hollywood wasn't to deny it. The answer from Hollywood was to laugh at him, to brand him a conspiracy theorist, to put him on a list and discreetly make sure his phone stopped ringing. The picture came out regardless, without a single big studio backing it, created on a quarter of a regular Hollywood budget, yet it raked in $251 million at the box office. The crowd showed up, the industry didn't, and Jim Caviezel continued talking. Because when Caviezel was being humiliated for saying it, and while Gervais was being booked once and never asked back for saying it, somebody else in Hollywood was at the very zenith of her power. She had a midday program that millions of Americans watched every single afternoon. She had a brand based on the term kind. She had 3 guilty men in her closest circle, and she was ready to go. Ellen DeGeneres, be kind. You couldn't watch 5 minutes of her program without hearing it. It was on the merch. It was on the intro. It was in every interview. It was the brand, the full personality. America's midday darling. The lady who danced into your living room every afternoon and encouraged people to simply be a little kinder to each other. Then in 2020, 36 former workers went to BuzzFeed, and what they described was not nice. What they described was the reverse of kind. One of them was Hedda Muscat. Not a junior assistant, not an intern, a genuine producer who worked with Ellen for years.
Ellen DeGeneres feeling the heat as more employees, past and present, from her show say that they were working in a toxic environment. Some Hollywood actors also speaking out against the talk show host now.
Toxic, phony, hypocrite, liar. That's what she is.
Those are her exact comments on camera: poisonous, false, hypocrite, liar. And she wasn't the only one. Former employee after former employee came out describing a culture of dread behind the scenes of the sweetest program on television. Walked on eggshells. That's the afternoon program that advised America to be nice. Warner Media started a complete inquiry. 3 executive producers were sacked. The complaints included unwanted touching, ethnic discrimination, and a culture of terror that had supposedly been going on for years. In September of 2020, Ellen sat down on her own program and addressed it for the first time on television.
Truth is, I am that person that you see on TV. I am also a lot of other things. Sometimes I get sad, I get mad, I get anxious, I get frustrated, I get impatient, and I am working on all of that.
A work in progress, a complete apology that never truly mentioned what she was sorry for. And previous workers did not buy it. One of them mentioned it on the record. She's known about this for 17 years. We were all scared of her. She was not nice. The Ellen DeGeneres show concluded in May of 2022, 19 years gone. And comedian Cat Williams emphasized publicly what a lot of people within the industry were saying quietly, that enterprises earning that type of money do not simply stop. Something horrible had to happen behind the scenes, something nobody was talking about on camera. The show ended. And then 2 months later, things became much, much darker. 2 months after Ellen's program ended, her ex-girlfriend Anne Heche was dead. 4 months after that, her DJ and executive producer Stephen Twitch Boss was dead too. Both deaths formally ruled. Both families departed with questions that to this day have never been completely addressed. Let's start with Anne. Anne Heche and Ellen DeGeneres dated openly from 1997 until 2000. At the time, it was one of the most talked about celebrity romances in America. Anne stated in interviews following that the connection affected her career, that doors began shutting the moment she went public. On August 5th of 2022, Anne's automobile was recorded on tape blasting through a residential area in Los Angeles at unusually high speed. It smashed into a home. The home caught fire. The automobile caught fire. Everything caught fire. She was retrieved from the wreckage with serious burns and smoke inhalation. And then a tape appeared that the internet has never been able to forget.
Ellen was far from nice. We're out there for years. What was your reaction to the toxic workplace controversy?
I felt that it was in the hands of the people who needed to speak their truth. I hadn't spoken to Ellen in years, and I feel that the stories that need to be listened to are being told.
Did the stuff about her being emotionally abusive to her staff ring true to you?
Emotionally abusive is a container for our actions that we've not healed. And unfortunately, the abusive environment was something that I understood.
Now 4 months later, it happened again. December 13th, 2022. Stephen Twitch Boss, the DJ on Ellen's program, the executive producer, the person you saw in every tape dancing, happy, brilliant, providing the excitement. He was the actual face of the Be Kind campaign, and he was discovered dead in a hotel room from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. His widow, Allison Holker, claimed nobody saw it coming. She told People magazine he exhibited no symptoms of being down, he simply wanted to be everyone's Superman. His grandpa talked to the Daily Mail 2 days after it occurred, stating they'd chatted as recently as that Saturday, adding Twitch was the same happy-go-lucky guy, saying there was no sign anything was out of the norm. The final text his grandson ever sent him stated, "I love you, Dad." And then in January of 2025, 1 month before the Epstein files were due to emerge, Allison Holker came forward with something fresh.
Things you cannot handle. I'm a firm believer in that.
There was a moment I was with one of my really dear friends, and we were cleaning out the closet and picking out an outfit for him for the funeral. And it was a really triggering moment for me because there was a lot of things I discovered in our closet that I did not know existed.
She said BuzzFeed she uncovered a significant stockpile of cocaine stashed in shoeboxes in their house. She stated it was really disturbing. She stated he was self-medicating. She claimed she had no clue. 2 persons related to Ellen gone in 4 months. Both deaths officially closed. Both family departed with questions. And then a few months later, the files fell, and every single one of those questions came crashing back. In February of 2026, the Department of Justice released nearly 3.5 million pages of information relating to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Now we have to speak about the 3 guys, since this is the part of the pattern that is not hearsay. This is not accusation. This is court record. This is established fact. Ellen DeGeneres was publicly close with 3 men who were each independently convicted of severe crimes. 3 guys, 3 different convictions, all involving exploitation or abuse. Number 1. Sean Diddy Combs. Diddy was on Ellen's program several times throughout the years. They had a recorded bond, and in 2016, on her program On Camera, with the crowd cheering, she dubbed him Cuddle McNugglestuff. That was the public piece, the on-camera friendship. In September of 2024, Diddy was arrested on federal charges. In July of 2025, he was found guilty on allegations linked to transportation for prostitution. In October of 2025, he was condemned to jail. Victims complained it wasn't enough. Number 2, Harvey Weinstein. Ellen and Weinstein were pictured together at gatherings. He appeared on her program. She openly backed his efforts. And at that moment, Ellen DeGeneres was already in England. That time frame is not a sensation. That timeline is not a feeling. That timeline is a calendar.
Is anybody hungry? I just feel like everybody's got to be hungry right now. Good. I was hoping you'd say that because I have this crazy idea that I will order pizza. And so if I do, I don't want it to go to waste. Who will eat pizza if I... Jennifer? Yes? Harrison? Yes? Yes? Mark? All right. Too large? What do you think? I'm going to order some pizza. That's what I'll do.
Now return to Caviezel, because here is where his warning begins to make a new sort of sense. Caviezel has never identified Ellen DeGeneres specifically in any verifiable interview. What he speaks about is greater than any one individual. He calls it the 8-armed octopus. You can cut off one arm, one producer, one host, one name, and the machine continues going. The other limbs keep moving. Remove one individual and the system remains intact. Ricky Gervais gazed straight at the A-listers in attendance at the 2020 Golden Globes. Afterwards, he said something that should never be spoken aloud. Nothing moved in the room. In their chairs, famous people moved about. In the very first row sat America's most adored actor, Tom Hanks. Years have passed since then. The situation is already grim, but it's about to become much worse when one survivor made an allegation that rocked the internet. According to Ruth Ashcraft, who has been accusing Tom Hanks of being her father's mistress, her father sold her to Hanks when she was 13 years old. The files are falling, the deadline is coming, and America's favorite star has supposedly departed the country. However, no one is making the connection here. There may be a direct connection between Jeffrey Epstein's machine and Tom Hanks's Oscar. And Ricky Gervais tried to warn us all along. Let's rewind to January 2020, the Golden Globe Awards, Hollywood's greatest night. Every A-list celebrity you can think of was seated in that room, dressed in gorgeous dresses and costly suits, eager to pat themselves on the back. And then Ricky Gervais strolled onto the stage. Now you have to grasp something about Ricky.
I thought, who do I pander to? The 200 richest people in the room or the 200 million people watching at home who aren't winning awards, who aren't millionaires? And it was a no-brainer. I was doing it for them.
And one individual in that room that night would become the focus of one of the largest conspiracy theories in contemporary entertainment history, Tom Hanks. For decades, Tom Hanks has been regarded untouchable. He's America's dad, the man who made you weep in Forrest Gump, the voice of Woody in Toy Story, the hero who landed a jet on the Hudson River in Sully. Tom Hanks made a career on portraying decent characters, honest folks, patriots, and the people bought it entirely. He won 2 back-to-back Oscars. He's been married to the same lady for almost 30 years. He appears like the most wholesome dude in Hollywood. But here's what you need to realize about Hollywood. Image is important. And the individuals that manage that image, they're very, very strong. So let's speak about what's truly in those Epstein papers on Tom Hanks. Now, Tom's name isn't prominently listed as a regular visitor to Epstein's island. That's crucial to clarify. But his name did exist in a 2013 email from Jeffrey Epstein's publicist. The context indicates social engagement, not proof of a crime, but a connection, a thread tying him to a world he has never publicly recognized.